problem trying to get the sound into my computer while Pro Tools is running, and the only way that I could do it is using the computer's input, and I don't have a microphone that has a little tiny connector, the 1/8 inch, so I'm actually talking through a set of headphones, so if the sound's not great, this is why. What I'm going to show you guys is basically, I'm going to walk you through what you're going to be doing for your final. So you're going to open Pro Tools, create a new blank session. It's going to be 16-bit, 44.1, and you all should know where to save it. This is my studio computer, so I'm just going to put it in a folder that I have for the ROP class stuff. And you guys are going to title yours Final 2015, last name, and make sure you put it in your students and your period number folder. So there's mine. And my Pro Tools session is being created. Now I'm going to import my files that I need. In this case, I'm going to just pull the generic ones. Make sure it should be written on the board which files you're going to need for your particular testing group. So, for me, I'm just going to take the generic final exam ones and import all 8. There should be 8 files. We'll put them in the default folder. And we're going to make them on new tracks. So now we've got our 8 tracks right here. I've got an extra row of view that I'm not going to want here, so I'm just going to get rid of it so it's easier for you to see the colors. Okay, so you can see the colors on the bottom. So I'm going to lay them out in the order that I have listed there. So my drums are going first. I'm going to start with my kick. I'm going to line up my snare, line up my overhead left, drum overhead right. I got bass, piano left, piano right, and my vocals. Okay, so then I'm going to color them. And I mean, really, I gave you guys specific colors, but it doesn't really matter. I'm putting my drums, I'm making them green. And this is just how I normally do it. My bass is going to be orange. My pianos are going to be red. And my vocal, I'll make them a lighter color blue. So I've got them all, they're already labeled up correctly. So now within these guys, I need to create groups. Let's create some drums as a group. And these 2 pianos, we're going to group those guys up. It's Command G to group something. And so now when I move one piano fader, the right and the left move together. Okay. Alright, so we're done with the first 4 blocks. Now I'm going to create a stereo master fader and 2 stereo aux tracks. Tracks, new. Let's create 1 stereo master fader and 2 stereo aux tracks. Okay, we're going to use those. The master is going to be to meter whether or not we're getting too loud. Oh, I missed 1 aux track. Okay, we got that guy going. We're going to use the master to meter whether or not we're clipping. We have these guys turned up too loud, which I doubt is going to happen because this was recorded from a live show where we left a lot of headroom on the board so we wouldn't get any feedback or clipping. Okay, so now that I've created these tracks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get back to them a little bit later once I label them and whatnot. But going on, it says to create a marker where the band comes in and one where the song ends. So the band comes in on this particular track, about 20 seconds in, which if I look up here at the top, if I'm in seconds, it's about right here. And this is where I would just push, this is enter on the far right number keypad. And this is the top of the song. That's where the band comes in. And then where the song ends, it's going to be back here right before the applause. And we'll write down end. So we've got a couple of markers. I can go to the beginning, I can go to the end if I need to. To access that, it would be command and then the keypad number 5. It brings up my list of tabs. Now, going on, kick drum. I'm going to do some EQ to the kick drum. This is going to just make it sound a little bit beefier, make it a little more. I have a few more plugins than you guys have, but the one you guys will probably use will be this EQ7. So I want to boost down here about 55, which is way low. So I'm going to pull this guy down. And it's just going to turn up all the subharmonics, and then I'm going to pull down the frequencies that are in about the bass range, which is, in this case, about 244. And I'm pulling that down pretty hard, so about 8 decibels is I think what I did there, what I suggested. So what I'm going to be looking for is this shape when I look at this EQ. Okay, the next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to roll off the low end on the vocals to eliminate any maybe like bass or kick drum that might be in the vocal mic, and also some of the pops that he might have on his vocal, because sometimes he does give like P's and stuff that are hard. So to do this, you could do it with the same 7-band EQ. You just turn this bottom one on, and we just set it to roll off at about 120. And that makes it really easy. So I'm done with my EQs. Now I'm going to label my aux tracks. This is the next step. I could have done this earlier, but it doesn't matter. So my aux 1 track, we're going to label Verb Hall. And my aux 2 track, we're going to label Verb Plate. Now, one thing it doesn't really list to do here, and I just assume that you know how to do, is route them so that they can accept it. So in this one, I have True Verb as my first one, but I'm going to rename that guy. So this is going to be Verb Hall here on where it's getting the sound from. Verb Hall, the input. And then this guy, we're going to make it a bus. We're going to rename this guy. So I rename it by right-clicking on it, and then it lets me give it another name. This will be Verb, either Verb 2, or in this case, this is Verb Plate. And then I'm going to solo safe them. Solo safe, you hold down Command, click the solo. So now when I solo one of these tracks, I could hear it with the reverb effect that I put on there. And I'm going to need to put the plugin, the reverb plugin. So I'm going to do reverb. Make sure you do multi-channel reverb. The one we're going to use, you guys have deverb. So we're just going to leave the first one, the default hall. And the second one, reverb, deverb, and we'll make the second one a medium plate. Okay, so now the verb plate and the verb hall are taking those inputs. And now if I want to put on here, we've got drum overheads, piano, and vocals to verb hall. So we're going to go drum overheads. We'll send maybe minus 14, just a little bit. Then I can do that here again. Minus 14. If I want to just copy paste this, you could hold down the option button and slide these over. Piano left, piano right, and then we want a little bit on the vocal. Okay, the other ones I need to send is I'm going to put snare drum and vocals on verb plate. So I'm going to use the second slot down now on my sends. Go to verb plate, and we'll send just a little bit, minus 14 again on that guy, and minus 14 on the vocal. Okay, so none of this, you've noticed, is I've needed to listen really to anything. This is all fairly standard stuff that you would do to a session just before you even get rolling with it. Alright, now the next couple of things, the compression is something that if you look at the tracks, the way they're laid out, you can see that there's a couple of spots like right here on the vocal where it gets a little bit louder, and there's a little, probably a pop or something. And then on the bass track, where is our bass track? Here's our bass DI. He's got a couple of notes where it gets a lot louder than the other stuff. So if we were listening to that, those notes would really pop out to us. So what we're going to do, I've listened to it already, is we're just going to put some general kind of compression on it. So if you just open Dynamics plugin, the compressor you guys have, I believe it's just called compressor, and then just the default setting 3 to 1. If you play in one of those areas where the bass is extra loud, you can set where the threshold kicks in. And you can see it flash up and down real quick on those spots, so we know it's working correctly. Alright, and so really it's just turning down the really, really loud stuff on that. And that setting would probably work really well also on the vocal. And let's see what happens. We'll move it over. And that was that spot where the vocal really hit hard. Yep, there it is, just moving a tiny bit. Let's make sure we look at this guy. Yeah, so the compressor is kicking in, and so that'll kind of mellow out some of the dynamics that we need to fix in there to make it a little bit easier to mix so that it's not jumping all over the place volume-wise. And then going on, we're to the next box. We're going to pan the drum overheads hard right and hard left. All right, so the one that says the one that says drum overhead left, we're going to just pull all the way to the left. The one that says drum overhead right, we're going to pull all the way to the right, and that should give us a big fuller sound if we play it back. I'm going to skip that for now just to go on. And what does it say? Move the bass a little bit to the right. When we did the performance, the piano was, if you were looking at the stage, to the left, and the bass was on the right, and the drums were more or less in the middle. So we're going to move it just a little bit off center so that it gives it the bass a little bit to the right. You can look at the arrow if we zoom in here. It's a little bit to the right, and now we're going to move the piano so that it sounds like on the left side, but not hard panned. So what we can do is we can hard pan the left one all the way, and then we leave the right one kind of a little bit less to the right. So if we listen back to it, now it should give us the illusion like the drums are going to be in the center, the bass is going to be slightly to the right, and the piano is going to be just a little bit to the left, hanging mostly on your left ear. And the vocal will be right in the middle. That's going to give us a pretty pleasing sound, and I mean visually it's exactly how the band was set up when they performed this. So if they ever sync it with a picture, like meaning somebody has a video, or if somebody took a photograph of it, it would what you're hearing would actually make sense to what's going on. Now leaving all of these levels at 0, we have quite a bit of headroom. We can turn things up, we can move things around however we want. And just listening to it right now, it does sound like there's kind of a lot of reverb, so I may need to cut these reverbs down, or I could even just turn them down on this over here. Alright, so then it just becomes a matter of mixing the levels. I haven't gone this far with it, so I'm going to play it back. Hopefully it doesn't feed back in the headphones. You may need to suspend some of the groups, like with the drums. I want to turn that kick drum down, and I want to turn up the overheads. Maybe the right one a little bit more because the ride cymbal is on the left, to balance out the drums. And it does sound like there's a lot of reverb on the recording, so I'm going to just pull these guys down a little bit. And the piano sometimes gets a little bit loud, but this wasn't terribly difficult to mix. It was recorded pretty well. And now I'm just going to save. Command S, or you can go up here to save and bounce out a version. Now the key to bouncing out, and one thing that I see a lot of you guys mess up, is that you don't always select the area that you want to bounce out. So in this case, we're going to want to bounce out from the very beginning all the way to the end. So we're going to highlight all the way from the beginning. I can just highlight one of these and it'll start from the beginning and go to the end, and I'll go bounce to disc. And then I'll make sure that this is selected to 1-2, analog 1-2, whatever my output was from my master fader. And I want to make sure that it's stereo interleaved, and I could either do it as a WAV file or an MP3, or I think in your version of Pro Tools you could even check a box that lets you do them both. So then it'll give you the option of naming them, and I want you to name your file the same like the session name. So final 2015 carry on period all day. And there goes my session. Man, that drummer's good.